Hi everyone, welcome to Fullstack Mania. In this video, we are going to cache the Spring Boot response into Redis database. So, we are going to send request to the MySQL database and whatever response we will get, we will send it to the Redis database. Okay, so the next time onwards when the request will come, it will be fetched from the Redis database instead of going to the MySQL, which is the actual database. So, in this way, the performance of the application will be improved. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. So I have created the REST application with all the four basic CRUD endpoints. So we can get the student with the help of student ID. We can create a new student with the help of post mapping. We can update an existing student with put mapping, and we can delete a student. Okay. Now let's okay, for the database part we are using MySQL. You can see we are connecting to the MySQL which is running on 3306, and let's go to Postman and test this. Before that, let's go to our database and see. In the database we have one table of student and where we have one record. Okay, so if you send the request, then we are getting the response back. If you send a request to a non-existing resource like student id 4, then you will get a suitable response like student not found. Okay, now we can create a student as well. Let's see the post mapping. So here I am creating a new student with the help of, let's say I change the name or something like that, and let's say the name is something Hari, and I sent the request. Now I got a new response, and if we go to the database and refresh this, then we can see we got a new record in the database. So post mapping is working fine. Now we can update an existing record. Let's say for the id 4 we can change the name to Ravan, okay, and address to Hyderabad. Okay, so if you send this request, then we are getting the response back, and in the database if you refresh, then the record 4 will be updated. So the basic functionality is working fine. Now let's implement caching to it and let's see how the application behaves. To implement caching, first we have to add few dependencies. So we have to add Spring Boot Starter Cache dependency and Spring Boot Starter Data Redis dependency, because the underlying caching database is Redis. Okay. The next thing is we have to go to the application.yaml and add few properties to it. Okay. So let's go to the application.yaml, and here we are going to give the host. What is the host of the Redis? Where it is? What is the host? And port, at which port it is running, and these are the two basic properties. And the two other properties are, what is the cache name. Okay, so this part I'll come later. So basically just remember that we have to add all these properties to it. Okay, the next thing is we have to go to the root of this application. Okay, so let's go to the root and add an annotation enable caching. Okay, so when Spring Boot will see this dependency annotation, then it will see what is the underlying caching mechanism. So when it founds the Spring Data Redis as the dependency, then it will create a default Redis cache manager with all the default configurations. Okay, and at that time it is going to use the properties that we added in the application.yaml. We can also override the default configuration. To override the default configuration, I created a Redis config class and marked it with @configuration annotation. Now we have to give a bin of Redis cache configuration. Okay, and let's import all the things. Okay, so here we are telling that we want the TTL as 60 minutes, that is 1 hour, and we don't want to cache null values. So this is the default configuration. Okay, to have more control on the configuration, we can override the default configuration manager. To do so, we have to give a bin of type Redis Cache Manager Builder Customizer. Okay, here we are telling that the cache for which the index is student, we want the TT student here. Okay, so for which it is student, the TTL will be 10 minutes. Okay, and for the cache where the index is teacher, we want the TTL as 5 minutes. Okay, except this, if anything we are caching, then for that the TTL will be 60 minutes. So in this way we are having better control on the cache. Okay, now the entity that you want to cache should implement serializable. It is a must, or else you will get some error. Okay, the second thing is whether we should implement caching on the controller or we should implement caching on the service. The answer is it depends on you where you want to implement. But let's look into this from this example perspective. Let's say I want to implement caching on the controller. So here I wrote at the rate cacheable key is equal to id. Now how it will work is whatever this method is going to return, it will cache it in the Redis database. The method is returning a response entity of student. I told you whatever you are caching should implement serializable. The student class is implementing serializable. But if you see, the response entity class is not implementing serializable. So if you cache it over here, then it will be a problem. Okay, as all the methods are returning response entity of student, the right place to implement caching is the service. So let's go to the service, and here we can give an annotation at the rate cache config. Okay, so and with this we are giving the cache name, basically the index of the cache. So whatever caching operation we are going to perform in this class, that will be updated on this student index. Okay, let's say we want to implement caching on the get student by id. To do so, we can give an annotation at the rate cacheable, and here we can use the Spring expression language and write key is equal to double quotes hash and id. So what we are telling is whatever id we are giving in the method parameter, the same id here it will get. Now the way cacheable works is first it will check in the cache whether the same id is available in the cache or not. If it is there, then it will return the data from the cache and this method is not getting a chance to execute. If it will not find the data in the cache, then only this method is going to execute. And once this method executes, whatever data it will return, the same data it will again update in the cache. Let's start the Spring Boot application and let's test this. If I send the request to the get API, the first time I'm getting the response from the database, from the MySQL database, and the data is cached in the Redis database. Now let's go to MySQL database and change the data. Let's say we'll make it some change like Raju 111, and let's apply this and apply this again so that it will be successfully updated. And now if we go to the postman and send the request again, we are getting the old data because now the data is served from the cache, right? Similarly, to update the cache, we have an annotation called at the rate cache put. Okay, so here you can write key is equal to hash double quote hash. As we don't have id directly in the method parameter, we can write student dot id, as id is a parameter of the student class. Okay, so we are referring to that id with the help of Spring expression language. So how this cache put is going to work is it will always allow the method to execute first. Okay, and whatever the method is going to return, the same data it will update in the cache. Okay, so the next time when you will call the get API, you will get the data from the cache. Okay, now let's test this. So let's go to the put API and let's send the request to it. So we have updated the third record. Let's go to the database. Previously it was Hari, and now if we refresh it, we will get Ravan 111. Okay, now let's go to postman and test this. Now if you send the get request to the third student, then you will get the same data that you are getting it from the cache. Now let's say we want to change it in the database. We will change it, apply so that it is updated. Now it is updated to 112222, and if you send the request to the get API, still you are getting the old data because we are getting the data from the cache itself. Whenever we are deleting something from the database, then it should be deleted from the cache as well. And to do so, we can write the annotation at the rate cache evict, and here in the key we can pass the id. Now let's go to the postman and delete the third record. Okay, we have deleted it and it is deleted from the cache as well. Let's go to the get request and send the request for the third record. Okay, and now we can see the third record is not available because the third record is deleted from the database and cache as well.